Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jayo Krishna Balaram, Jayo Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jayo Krishna Balaram. Jayo Nittai Gauranga, Jayo Nittai Gauranga, Nittai Gauranga, Jayo Nittai Gauranga. Jayo Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, Chapter 3, Text number 12. Please repeat after me. Athainam ashtaud avadharya purusham. Athainam ashtaud avadharya purusham. Param natanga krutadi krutanjali. Param natanga krutadi krutanjali. Swarochisha bharata sutika gruham. Swarochisha bharata sutika gruham. Virochayantam gatabi prabhavavet. Virochayantam gatabhi prabhavavet. Atainamastau avadharya purusham. Param natanga Putanjali. स्वरोचिषा भारतसूतिका गृहम् विरोचयन्तं गतभी प्रभाववेत् अतैनमष्टौदवधार्य पूरुषम् परं नतंगा कृतधी कृतांजलि स्वरोचसा भारता सूतिका गृहम् विरोचयन्तं गतभी प्रभाववेत् अतैनमस्तौदवधार्य पूरुषम् परं नतं कृतधी कृतांजलि स्वरोचिषा भारतसूतिका गृहम् विरोचयन्तं गतभी प्रभाववेत् अतैनमष्टौदवधार्य पूरुषम् परं नतंगा कृतधी कृतांजलि स्वरोचिषा भारतसूतिका गृहम् विरोचयन्तं गतभी प्रभाववेत्. Word to word translation. Atha, thereafter, enam, to the child, ashtaut, offered prayers, avadharya, understanding surely that the child was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Purusham, the Supreme Person, Param, transcendental, Nata Angaha, falling down, Kruta Dihi, with concentrated attention, Kruta Anjalihi, with folded hands, Swarochisha, by the brilliance of his personal beauty, Bharata, O Maharaj Parikshit, descendant of Maharaj Bharata, Sutika Gruham, the place where the Lord was born, Virochayantam, illuminating all around, Gata Bihi, all his fear disappeared, Prabhavavit, he could now understand the influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O Maharaj Parikshit, descendant of King Bharata, Vasudeva could understand that this child was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana. Having concluded this, without a doubt, he became fearless. Bowing down with folded hands and concentrating his attention, he began to offer prayers to the child who illuminated his birthplace by his natural influence. Purport. Struck with such great wonder, Vasudeva now concentrated his attention on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Understanding the influence of the Supreme Lord, he was surely fearless, since he understood that the Lord had appeared to give him protection. Gata Bhi Prabhavavit, understanding that the Supreme Personality of Godhead was present, he appropriately offered prayers as follows. The sense. So we see here, Vasudeva is wonderstruck at seeing the baby Krishna, and very nicely Prabhupada is talking about how he, having concluded this without a doubt, that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he became fearless. Right? Gata bihi, all his fear disappeared. Fear is a very prominent part of our lives, right? Despite several attempts at conquering fear, it is a constant companion. And the fact is that fear produces, even they have done research on this, scientists have done research in the modern day scientists. Does anybody say what is the problem with fear? Anybody knows what the research says? Kills innovation. Okay. Our brain will not work. Huh? Defense mechanism. So we keep talking about the limbic system and the parasympathetic system, right? Sympathetic parasympathetic system. The limbic system, which is the core part of the brain, which deals with just survival, basic things and all that. They sometimes call the reptilian brain, they call it, to talk about that's the fundamental, foundational parts of the brain. The brain is a machine. It's just literally a machine. Think of it like this. If somebody is a little bit into chip technology, you'll understand what I'm trying to say here. Let's say, like many of these Apple chips now, right? They have different cores. There are high performance cores and there are just some low performance cores. Depending on what is needed, when energy has to be conserved, all the high performance cores are shut off. And only the low performance cores will be acting. Right? So very similarly, this is just a brain, this is a machine. Well, let's say when your battery is about to die, what will the phone do? It will try to Low power mode. Have you seen this low power mode? All the power to all there's no prefetching of data. Like all these higher level things that were happening will all be shut down. Survival things. Keep the thing on as much as you can. Very similarly, when fear comes, all the higher parts of our brain get shut off. And you're now dealing with a limbic system, which also tends to overreact to situations. But that is for survival. If there is genuinely, a tense situation, let's say a gun, somebody enters this place with a gun. Right? We have to, it's survival at this point, right? We can't keep thinking, which sloka of the Gita. We should do those things. But I'm saying we have to first act. Different people have different duties. They have to act to counter the situation in a very distinct way. So that is a problem with fear. Fear causes it takes away our ability to act at the highest level. Now, for devotees, this is even more debilitating, because it means that we have not yet sufficiently developed faith in the Supreme Lord. Right? If you have fear of something, then that means to say that, like, what is it like if you just go down to the foundational thinking about? Let's even take the example, there's a gunman that enters right now. Right? Ultimately, we should all have faith. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? Without his sanction, thrunam api na chalati. Not even a blade of grass moves without Krishna's sanction. We should have Krishna's sanction. We'll still try to do the things we need to do, to protect, to prevent, and all those things. Because different people have different innate gunas and varnas and ashramas, right? That we are born with. There will be somebody who is a Kshatriya, varna, that is your Krishna has given you the duty. You will try to overpower the person or lunge at the person, protect others. That's natural for you. You can't expect somebody who is more Brahminical in nature to act like that, because it won't come out. That's not their training. That's not their, this thing. So like different people do different things, but we have to do it. But ultimately, we have to understand it is the sanction of the Lord. And there are ways to deal with those situations. The reason I gave very extreme example is to give us a sort of a foundational understanding of how to deal with things. You see, that is why it is very important to see the life of great devotees that we hear from the Bhagavatam. Can we give some examples of somebody who was put into very fearful situations and how they reacted? Prahlad Maharaj is a great example. Ambarish Maharaj is also another wonderful example. Draupadi was also put into a very fearful situation. Prahlad Maharaj, a small boy, right? You take him and put him into a pit of vipers and cobras, right? And he has reached a stage of spiritual elevation, right? I guess at that point anybody cannot do anything. you can't really try to go to some corner of the pit or something. There is no, it's full of venomous snakes, and is really completely gone beyond any material these things, and just depending on the Lord. Right? Now you all gave wonderful examples of a lot of other people, and we can see Prabhupada, how he dealt with situations, which are considered fearful, and and we can learn lessons for dealing with this, because these are all very, very important lessons. As we've said, if we do not learn how to deal with this, there are going to be consequences, which are not optimal, right? So usually when you talk about fear, there are two varieties of fears. I'd like to hear from all of you, like, what do you think? I mean, I'm just giving one way of categorizing. There must be 100 different ways of categorizing. What are the two kinds of fears? Huh? Oh yeah, see, I didn't think even that. Healthy fear, unhealthy fear. Okay, that is also two varieties of fears. Healthy fear and unhealthy fear. Because that's very important. I always keep saying, we should have healthy fear of going to lower modes of nature, offending Vaishnavas. That healthy fear should be there all the time. If we don't have that fear, we'll act recklessly, and there are consequences for that. But I'm just talking about fear in general. Like when you say somebody is afraid of something, all of us, is anybody here not experience fear? Everybody experience fear? Just try to think of two different kinds of fears, and is there a way to categorize those fears? Say a little bit more. You're on the right track, but not. Huh? See, there are more categorizations of fear possible. Short-term fear, long-term fears. What is it? Yeah. Yeah. You're also getting closer. There is a fear of losing something that you already have, and there is fear of not getting something that you want to get. Right? Like, just start thinking a little bit. We'll start thinking all our fears. After a lot of hard work and this thing, I got this. If I lose this, what will happen to me? Right? Madhupana Prabhu once said this, and then I realized, oh yeah, this makes sense. He was talking about, eating, sleeping, mating, defending. These are things everybody has to do. And there is as a Brahmana, as a devotee, we have to minimize these four activities. So he was talking about defending. Right? How do we defend in this? Like, what does defending mean for us sitting here in Milpitas in year 2024 or here? How are you all practicing doing defending? You are doing. That much is for sure. How are you doing? I think Ramnam hit the nail on the head. Saving money. Right? That is a form of defense. Why are you saving money? Because you want to defend against future, old age, this and that, and so many things. Oh, retirement. You'll go check your 401k. And Fidelity will tell you, you're on track, not on track. They even started showing now. I went one day to Fidelity. It's now showing, like, how many years this money will last. Now everybody log into their Fidelity accounts and log in and see what money you have said, how many years will it last. Right? Now that is one way of defending, and others also, like you have a grihasthas, you build a home. Right? Why you want a home? Because you want to defend against nature, external elements and this and that. Because there is fear. There is underlying this thing. That doesn't mean that you don't do these things, but there's a level of it, right? But if you think about, somebody who takes the decision of joining as a full-time devotee, like, and says, oh, I am, it needs a certain level of, somebody is truly doing this, it needs a certain level of faith in the Lord, right? Your, Ramnam is not having a 401k account. Where do I log into Fidelity? Right? No fidelity. What is fidelity for Ramnam? Highest fidelity. Right? So, like that, there is fear of losing something, fear of something we have gained, and we create all this. But as devotees, as spiritualists, we have to learn to limit our, there's a spectrum. Prahlad Maharaj was the end of the spectrum. What did he do? Hare Krishna. Full surrender. If you fully surrender, the Lord will absolutely take care of you. That's what faith we should have, we should develop. But it takes time to develop that. Based on Varna, Ashrama, the practice of this is different for different people. Right? For somebody who is a brahmachari and who has, given his life for serving the spiritual master's mission, they don't think about the future and they are serving, understanding that people who have made all kinds of plans, you can make all kinds of plans. Right? Will the plans, everybody's plans work? Right? I can give you, if anybody wants this thing, I'll give you practical examples of people I personally know who made all plans and nothing worked. You can have all the money in the world you want, you can have all this thing, but nothing will. And just to give some practical these things, this John F. Kennedy is there, right? One of the big presidents of this country, very famous, in his 40s, he was such a powerful, and the Kennedy family, right? John F. Kennedy was assassinated. We all know that. Many of you may not know, 1 or 2 years later, his brother was also assassinated. Then, how many of you have seen that in audio multivision, in the multivision theater in Bangalore? You have seen that in that, where they show the video of that, that shooting. And then right after that, one image comes. I don't know if any of you have seen, but I'm a little visual person, I remember that. A small boy, John F. Kennedy Jr.'s son, he's saluting like this. He's a small baby, like he's hardly 2.5, 3 years old. When his father's procession is just going over there in this thing, because he's been taught, like nobody even taught him. Nobody said you do salute and all those things. It's just that, he had seen all the people salute, when his father would come, and he just saluted. And that is considered a very iconic moment, this thing. His name is John F. Kennedy Jr. He also died at the age of 38 years old in a plane crash. He was flying with his wife and his sister-in-law or something. Single propel this thing. They were going to this thing. Suddenly some clouds came and he just lost control and crashed and died. In that family, it's called the Kennedy curse. So many people in that family either have been killed or this. One of the most powerful, like this John F. K. Jr. was considered royalty. Because the Kennedy family is a very rich family traditionally, and a very powerful family as well. And then, his father had died, his uncle had died, and this thing, and he was a very up and coming politician himself. And he was on the magazine of, what is it, Vogue magazine. He was rated as the sexiest man alive. And it seems that in the history of that magazine, they keep putting these people, it's in the history of that magazine, the highest number of copies ever sold was when he was posted on that. So he had big family, lot of wealth, very beautiful, very articulate, went to law school in a big this thing. Every single aspect of it, highly educated, very cultured, very, very cultured. You should see the way that family behaves, these things, always keeping the great of the nation. In every aspect, you can't find, they say, right, you can't even find a small fault in this thing, naturally, materially speaking. And by the way, they were all very God-conscious people as well. They were Christians and this thing. And then, just imagine in one family, every single member of the family dying. What does that even mean? Kind of thing, right? So there are the fear of losing something. You can have many, and we should see how Prabhupada reacted when he was exposed to this kind of situations by Kala, by the arrangement of the Lord, right? So, for example, Prabhupada, before he took sannyas, he was a very successful businessman, right? In one place, in the this thing, in the Leelamrita also it mentioned, and also in 2-3 places I've heard this being mentioned. Anybody remembers what his income was, monthly income? Huh? 5,000 rupees. In 1920s, 5,000 rupees is a huge sum. The dollar to rupee exchange rate was like $3 or something, 3 rupees per dollar or something like that. This thing. And those days, a rupee could buy a lot of things. And even a dollar in those days could buy a lot of things. So Prabhupada, there was a time when he was a very, very successful businessman. Then in his own life, Prabhupada saw that, everything was taken away. And Prabhupada he did not change his attitude towards his dedication to serve or, his interest in, fulfilling his spiritual master's mission. He still kept trying and kept working on, fulfilling his spiritual master's mission. So, we also have to understand that when our journey goes inward, this fear of losing things and all those things should slowly start disappearing from our lives. The other thing is fear of not getting something you're desiring for. Both of them are very similar fears, right? Because you're aspiring for something, you're comparing, you're thinking, if I do this, I should get this result. And there is fear, what if I don't get? What will happen to me? What is this thing? And then we develop all these different kinds of fears related with that. Right? Now, how do we overcome these fears? What are some of the principles given in the Shastras that help us, with these fears? Depend on the Lord. Yes? It's very broad, yes, but it is important. Knowing that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Huh? Lord is your ever well-wisher. And think about it. If we go down to the very foundational thing for practicing Krishna consciousness, we do not need anything. Right? We do not need anything to practice Krishna consciousness. We have seen practical examples of devotees who were put into concentration camps in Siberia by the Russian government. They were happily practicing Krishna consciousness over there. Right? If you all remember, I've told this story before, the story in a history before. The one devotee, he was put into that just because they were distributing books. They were distributing books and that were considered illegal, and they put him in those things. They would get soggy bread, and then some obviously unmentionable, foods that they can't even eat. They would take that bread and dry it so that it becomes less this thing. In fact, he made beads out of those bread. That's how they would count. They're chanting, with that. No books were allowed, nothing allowed. Just the only thing they could do is chant Hare Krishna. And that those devotees, for not 1 day, 2 days. I think he was there, if I remember, 11 years. Right? And now he's happy. Krishna brought him outside and he's very nicely practicing, spiritual life. But think about it, even if you're put into that extreme situation, we should have that faith, what? Krishna will take care. And what do we need for Krishna consciousness? Nothing but inner self. The more inward we go in our lives, the more we are able to deal with all of these things in the right perspective. This fear of losing and the fear of gaining something, it has a lot to do with comparison. We have a very irrational outlook when we compare. Objectively, if you sit down one day and think about everything, whom will you compare to normally when you do comparison? Who will you compare to? Our close people. My own family, my own relatives, my god brothers. In spiritual life also we compare. My god brothers, my god sisters, those things. You also said something, right? You always compare to somebody who has succeeded. Nobody compares to somebody like, if you sit down objectively and say, okay, let's say you want to compare with all your relatives. Right? Sit down, write all the relatives' names. Similar age group you take just for this thing. And see the variety of things that have happened in this. Right? Then actually you will come back and say, I'm good. Huh? And the point is, does it matter? Let us say you are the bottom 20% of those people. It really, does it matter? Why does it not matter? I want to hear from you. Why does it not matter? It is temporary. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. Each and every one has to leave behind everything and go. Nobody is taking anything, please. Nobody is taking anything. See, wonderful way Krishna has arranged. Now it's a matter of saying, when are you going to lose? And this thing. That is why, what does sannyas even mean? A sannyasi is saying, anyway it is going to go, I'm voluntarily giving it up. Imagine how liberating it is internally. If somebody is internally focused and truly spiritual, how liberating it is to say, death, I'm dying today. I'm fixing my time of death, I'm dead. That's what a sannyasi means, like you're dead. You're fixing a date and time of your death and you're saying, I'm dead. Right? So there is the aspect of thinking that When you go internally, what is needed for my spiritual progress? What is needed for this? Nothing is needed. Our biggest problem is mind creates all these comparisons and these things very irrationally. 99, all comparison is irrational. There is no connection between yours, forget material, even your spiritual. There is no connection. You should only be concerned about one thing. Am I making spiritual progress or not? And now this comes to the healthy fear, unhealthy fear. You should have fear whether, am I really advancing? Am I really making progress? If I'm not making progress, there should be some fear. What am I doing? How do I, protect myself? Also, there is this aspect of, it is sometimes seen as, like, we should see something negative happens in our life. We should see that, is there a lesson for me to be learned from that? Right? There are two aspects to this. It could be due to the Lord's wish of how the Lord is unfolding our prarabdha karma, or it could be due to something that we have to learn a lesson. And so what happens is, unless we learn to discern these things, what is to be learned, there's always, the beauty of this is when your inward journey is going on, your focus is completely inward, you will see there's a lesson to be learned in everything. Right? Our whole life is a lesson. There is always an opportunity to get better. So there is a lesson to be learned from everything. You just take, what does it matter whether it is prarabdha karma or this thing? Take as, okay, what is the lesson to be learned? And try to be a better person with every situation that happens. Right? Now, one should learn to differentiate the two though. Otherwise, you will say, oh no, you might be doing a mistake. And you might be getting a reaction for your mistake. And instead of learning from that, you will say, no, actually my karma, that's why I am like this. Then you will not learn from that this thing. Saying, because you stop doing that wrong thing, that reaction will go away sometimes as well. Right? Don't you see that? So we have to focus on understanding different coping mechanisms we all have to build. We have to build spiritual muscles to deal with the different situations that Kala brings in front of us. No situation, no condition is a detriment to your foundational Krishna consciousness. Nothing happens in anybody's life that is not sanctioned by the Lord. Nothing happens. If it has happened, it is sanctioned by the Lord. Now it's a question of understanding what was the Lord's. You don't have to many times even understand why the Lord sanctioned it also. Have that faith. Have full faith that everything is sanctioned by the Lord. Then you will start living a life of fearlessness. And when you start living a life of fearlessness, when you focus on your internal journey, you will see that it is every single moment we can see the hand of the Lord, we can see it in a Krishna conscious way, and we can feel like a kitten in the mouth of the cat who's feeling cared and nurtured and protected. What a wonderful feeling that is. Right? To be to be under the shelter of a loving, caring for Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? So, this is a very complicated topic. We can spend hours on it. Since we don't have too much time, we should all understand that when we are trying to check whether we have made advancement in our spiritual life or not, this is a very good barometer. wonderful. One of those few things that are very easy to gauge. If you have any kind of fear, you are experiencing it. It means you say that we have not fully surrendered to the Lord. Obviously, differentiated from the healthy fear of not doing a mistake and being watchful and all. Okay, we'll stop here. Anybody has any questions? Yeah, I think the that is the most healthy way of dealing with anything that we so-called consider negative. If you really truly go, there's nothing negative, there's nothing that is wrong with any situation. That is just our mental construct. We think something is good, something is bad. But at the same time, when we see something that is I wanted to actually spend more time on how Srila Prabhupada's life things were happening, right? So, for example, in 1976, Vrindavan temple had been inaugurated. And Prabhupada was spending quite a bit of time in Vrindavan. They changed 4 temple presidents in that 1 year. Constantly there were problems. There were problems with this, there were problems. So many. You read the Transcendental Dairy book, right? Harishwari Prabhu's book. When we were reading those the incidents, or you read the letters associated with those times, you will see so many challenges Prabhupada was dealing with. But Prabhupada is just like, today what is the new thing? Deal with. Not that he's not dealing with it. Not that he's not, this thing. And that is the reality of how this material world is. This material world is meant, they say, it is a disorder, an entropy. Even in science we talk about entropy, right? Everything, you leave it, it is meant to disintegrate in this world. Entropy expands, third law of thermodynamics. Entropy expands. Way to think about it is, in a layman's terms, is you leave anything, just disintegrate. It'll fall apart. And that is the nature of this world. We should be surprised how things are still holding in place. So given that, I think it's the simplest way to deal with it is just see what is the lesson I can learn. There's always a lesson to be learned. That's the beauty of it. For a spiritualist, every moment is a lesson to be learned. And by the way, please understand something. It is very, very, very difficult to change your innate behavior. That doesn't mean that you should stop doing it. That is the beauty of spiritual life. You should say, read and understand what is the ideal behavior. If you don't know, ask somebody. And then you keep trying to change, You will keep failing. But there will be success also. But you will see, if you keep on doing it over a period of time, amazing transformation will happen. What you thought was impossible, Krishna will make it possible. Guru, Krishna, Prabhupada will make it possible. Right? So we should all take that opportunity to say, find every single thing. What is the lesson to be learned? And also step back and think, what does it matter? Learn to get solace from that and happiness from that. What does it matter? Right? Now, you have to only guard against becoming complacent with situation and not learning from it. Right? You can say, oh, everything is good, and reinforcement is being given and you're not learning from it. You could end up not taking advantage of an opportunity to be a better person. Because ultimately, all of us, we are pure Satchidananda. This engagement, all the challenges we're dealing with is just a temporary phase that we'll all overcome one day by the grace of the Supreme Lord. Are they ready? I was waiting for the pujan. Okay. The Gantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki.